Well, hello there, and welcome to a new endeavor, a new venture here on the channel Beyond 360. This is Speaks Beyond 360, and I'm your host, James Fondren, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Speaks Beyond 360. And in this episode, we're going to discuss the time and occasion that I had to visit the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry Supreme Council Southern Jurisdiction Temple, House of Temple. So it's House of the Temple. So that was an interesting visit. I've been to Washington, D.C. on several occasions, but I did not ever get the opportunity to go to this particular structure that we're going to be talking about in this episode, the inaugural episode of Speaks Beyond 360. I'd like to think that I've been to some rather interesting places in my life. I've had the opportunity to be able to travel. I've been to Europe several times, but there are gems around the corner here in the United States that, I haven't been to every state in the United States. I can't say that I have, and that's something that, who knows if I'll actually do that or not. But this was an interesting trip, and when you walk up to this place, you realize, okay, this is set apart from everything else. It's built in such a great style of architecture, and it's, it mimics the other monuments because I believe they were built by the same architect, or designed rather by the same architect as, I believe the Lincoln Memorial and some of the other memorials that are in Washington, D.C. So when you walk up the steps, you see, some statues and the engravings of 1733. And you get to the front door, and it's the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Supreme Council, 33rd degree. And then it says library and museum on the front. So once you walk in, you begin the tour, and it has a very open area where you go in and you start the tour, and you go up the stairs into the very first thing, which is like the meeting chamber or the ritual room. You first notice things like the colors in the wall and how that is. It's very interesting, and you walk inside, and you immediately you can look up to the ceiling and just the design and craft, and there's a massive skylight at the top of the ceiling that you notice immediately that brings in natural light into the room. And then you see basically the two pillars, right? That if you've studied Freemasonry or if anybody has, you'll know the two pillars. And what is also interesting is it's like stained glass where they have the large windows for this temple, and the lower you are, the more well, not thick, but I want to say it's, yes, thicker the tone of the glasses, or the tone, definitely in the coloring. And as you go higher up in the glass, the more illumination there is, the more light comes through the glass, and that's symbolic of the journey towards kind of understanding and coming to an understanding of, I guess, Freemasonic principles, and just, at its core, we're talking about morality as well. So that's something that you notice immediately when you're in this room. And it's very ornate, lots of imagery, lots of thought behind everything, with giant purple curtains, that go across. It's almost tapestries that are, they're at least 20 feet high. It's incredible, along with these pillars. So when in the middle of the room, though, is the actual ritual spot of initiation, where who knows how many men have been initiated, but you can look at the pillow itself, which is also a purple pillow, and it's just completely worn down from all the knees that have been that have knelt there. It's quite incredible. Like, it's like everyone's kneeling in the same spot in this pillow. I mean, I'm sure they replace it every once in a while, but there's a lot of knees that have been down on that pillow, trust me. But this altar with the ritual, it has, it has the holy books from your main, Western Judeo-Christian religion. So you have the Bible, you have the Pentateuch, the Old Testament, you have the Quran, and then you also have a two other books. But essentially, you have to believe in a higher power. You're asked if you believe in God, and they don't allow atheists into the organization, or at least not tacitly. I mean, you can't go up there and say, I believe in nothing, and be initiated as a Freemason. They don't accept that. So anyway, there's so much in this facility and this place, and there's a museum, and they have kind of their own little relics. Like there was a piece of the Columbia Space Shuttle tile, because it was presented to a prominent Mason who I guess was a scientist at NASA, and who had worked, for the space program. So that was interesting. And also their claim was that there was a Freemasonic flag that was flown by Buzz Aldrin during the moon landing, the first moon landing, which they didn't have photographs of like they had with the planting of the American flag. But their claim was that there was a separate photo that was taken, and it was it was taken after or in tandem with the famous and iconic moon landing American flag photo. Then you get into the library, and the library really is an incredible place. It's very ornate, and it's really you're surrounded by deep, important knowledge. And as you walk through, you see all these wonderful books that, it's like, what are in these pages? It would take multiple lifetimes to know what's in here. It's impossible. There's just so many books. But there's one book in particular they have a copy of, and that is The Secret Teachings of All Ages, which is basically an encyclopedia of Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalah, Rosicrucian, symbolical philosophy. So it's a deep kind of guide, encyclopedic book for occult traditions I just mentioned, by Manly P. Hall, who was also initiated as a 33rd degree Mason. So as you go through, and you're looking at this book, and there are all these images that you look at these books, and they're images onto themselves. There are details in these images that are telling the reader something that you have to study and you have to learn. And what does it mean? What is the book inside the book? What is the book in the images and the art that's hidden before you? So why do I talk about this? Why is this an important topic? Why am I talking about this on Speaks Beyond 360? Well, I'm talking about it because we live in a time where there's a lot of pushback against conspiracies and conspiracy theories. And what you have to understand is that there are real conspiracies and there are real conspiracy theories. Now, I'm not speaking to any particular conspiracy at this time, and I'm not going to do that in this episode. But what I am going to speak to is that there are people who believe in these traditions and follow them, these occult traditions. So, and it's occult knowledge. And what does that mean for everybody else? It means that they're following one set of parameters that may or may not be aligned with the truth. Some of it is, some of it isn't, right? But at the same time, they're living by this. Like, they believe, they take in the information, they process the information, they're putting the information out into the world again. So that goes on the light and the dark side of this, and there is a light and dark side of this. And if you don't know that, start studying this, but you better ground yourself, because you can tumble down the rabbit hole. Trust me, I've done it, and you don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole. But I think it puts things into perspective. The imagery of these books within these books of these traditions is, it says a lot. It tells you something. So start thinking for yourself if you're not. Turn off the television. Obviously, most people aren't. Let's use a more modern vernacular here. Close your computer, your laptop, turn off your iPad, put away your phone, and start looking into this information. If you're using a laptop, okay, reopen your laptop and start looking into this information, because that's the qualifier. That's what's going to show you. It's like, well, wait a minute. There are these things. These things do exist. People do believe in them, and people also not only believe, they act on it. So it doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. It doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. What matters is that other people believe in it and they act upon it. So that's the situation we're in. And this is what's really interesting about this. Now, for the most part, Masonry is a good tradition, and there are people who are Masons today. I would say it's probably most of these traditions are, becoming less and less of a thing. There was a time in, the mid 20th century where it was probably the numbers were the highest, and they've probably been on the decline ever since, and it's been used as a networking tool. People use it for business contacts, but there's a deeper body and sea of knowledge, a deeper body of knowledge here that is really, it's lost to most people, but we have access to it. It's just the will. People have lost the will to look into things of interest like this. What is an image telling you? What does it mean? What is the book within the book, right? So just something to think about. These things, don't just take the Hollywood variant of what they tell you, a tradition like this is, or what, these ideas are when we're talking about occultism, So I think it's important to understand that, because like I said, this is deep knowledge. They're telling you something, it means something, they believe it and they act on it. So I mean, it's not people want to say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist or you believe in conspiracies. Well, some conspiracies are true, and some conspiracies actually have happened and do happen. So I think it's a dangerous time right now, because I feel that the system itself is kind of suppressing this thought, this free thinker philosophy of, I'm going to look into information, I'm going to use my powers of discernment to determine whether or not this is true or accurate or not. And not everybody has the same level of discernment. And it takes time and practice, and you have to build your knowledge base. There has to be a knowledge transfer. You have to learn some of this stuff before you can discern, okay, this is good, this is not good. Look, I started learning about this, I would say probably 10 years ago. And this was before things really took off with, the political world in 2016 and the previous president and administration, and then, what people call QAnon and all of that. Listen, those are things that I looked at, and I'm thinking, well, if you understand the nature of our reality and you understand how control systems actually work, it's like expecting the cure from the disease, right? Okay, in some cases, like, smallpox, for example, they used to inoculate people with, which was basically taking a little bit of the smallpox disease and putting it into people deliberately as an inoculation to build an immunity so they wouldn't die from smallpox, right? The problem is what people are looking for in things like unnamed, anonymous things like QAnon and other things. Those things, you're not going to get the cure from the disease. It's like you're going to cure cancer with more cancer. No, you're not. So that's where discernment comes in. You have to understand what's legitimate and what's not legitimate. What's illegitimate, it doesn't have a right in nature. And what is legitimate, it does have a right in nature to exist. Anybody telling you that there is a government absolute 100% solution to the problem is selling you a bill of goods. I'll just tell you that right now. So, but anyway, this was a fascinating visit. I enjoyed it. I don't know if I'll actually go back there. Maybe one day I will if I go back to Washington, D.C. But again, just something to kind of open eyes a little bit. I think it's perfectly legitimate to talk about these things because these are real things in the world. These are things that people, this is knowledge. It's hidden knowledge. That's why it's called occult knowledge, because it's hidden from sight. It's hidden from the mainstream. It's hidden from sight. It's occulted. It's hidden away. It means hidden knowledge, and that's what this is. And you go into a place like this, and you realize I'm entering a temple of knowledge that's hidden. So that's all I have for this episode of Speaks Beyond 360. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll do some other little blurbs here on the channel. I finally got my audio set up the way I like it, my recording capabilities set up the way I like it. I'll probably put something up on the screen to kind of give this a little bit of an ambiance, kind of as a maybe so it's like a journey, like we're going to a place together on these little recordings, on these podcasts, if you will. But you have listened to the very first episode number 1 of Speaks Beyond 360. We'll catch you right here next time.